July 14th to order. You will notice, thanks to the library, we do not have an 8.5 by 11 flag. We now have a flag. So if you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, we appreciate it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're moving on to open public meetings notice. Pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Act, notice that this meeting was sent to the Cranberry Press, Trenton Times, and Home News Tribune on January 3rd, and location change on July 7th, posted on the Township's website, and sent those who requested a copy of this notice. We will move on to roll call. Mr. Christopher.
Here.
Mrs. Elbadawi is absent. Dr. Rogers.
Here.
And Mr. Scott.
Here.
And Mayor Kinnear.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any changes or additions on our agenda this evening?
Yes, so we're going to be adding to our consent agenda, Resolution 104, which the resolution in support of NJ protection against climate threats, resilient environments, and landscape rule. And second, we will be removing the first ordinance that is on tonight for second reading, which is Ray Township Ordinance number 06-25-08, which will be put on a future agenda.
Right. The planning board met last week, and their role was to do a consistency review on both ordinances that were on tonight. 06-2508, they made a suggestion to give it more flexibility. So as said, we will reintroduce it at our next meeting. Future meeting. Okay. So reports and can I get a motion to approve the minutes from the regular meeting on 23rd, as well as the special meeting on June 26th.
I'll make a motion for both meetings.
I'll second both.
Thank you. We're going to move on to roll call for both. That would be Mr. Christopher.
Yes.
Mrs. Elbadawi is excused absent. Dr. Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Scott.
Yes.
And Mayor Kinnear.
Yes.
That's unanimous. Thank you.
Okay. Who would like to kick off their reports and commissionings? Sure. Rob.
Well, kicking it off today, my board of commissioners have not met, so this is my quiet week. And we will spend time with me next month.
Okay. Barbara?
I am the same, quiet, and don't have anything to report.
Oh, okay. Well, then I'll just waste some time. Not really.
Yeah, I have a Parks and Rec on Wednesday, but nothing since then.
Okay, got it. Okay, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for a very successful July 5th. I was unfortunately out of town at a wedding, so I couldn't attend it, but I heard it was as magical as always, and wanted to just thank again our Cranberry Volunteer Fire Company, our police department, and of course our first aid for a successful evening, so that's great. I think everyone's aware of the new recycling bin program. Some updates went out about that it's one bin per household. If you don't want the old bins, you actually recycle them in the new bins. And that will start, I believe, the second week in August. So if they're not being picked up, that's why it hasn't started yet. And then the school just wanted me to remind everybody that welcoming new families and students, student registration is now open. This will go out in the mayor's update links tomorrow. And if you moved within Cranberry or outside of Cranberry and have a high school age student, same thing, there's registration links on there, and I'll publish them tomorrow. If anybody who's been able to walk into Village Park over the last couple of days, but I just wanted to thank the Parks and Rec Commission, as we have a beautiful new cedar roof that is on the pavilion, which is fantastic. So our residents now enjoy the pavilion for parties and gatherings without worrying about leaks from above. And it really looks cool. There's a really neat copper element around like the chimney, so you get a chance to go over there. Well, I was also over there, Parks and Rec, because we continue the multi-use courts in Village Park. Please note that there's an orange construction fence that's up for the protection of the residents, as also the surface as it's curing. So please don't cross over that fence, and we hope that we'll be able to use that. They'll be up and running by mid-August. And then any of you walked in tonight, you'll see that the walking paths that connect the Cranberry School parking lot and the library, there's 2 tables out there. They've been installed. They're permanent structures, and they have 3 permanent chairs there. So for players' comfort. So that's kind of really all I had as updates, just some good things going
I
on.
just wanted to thank the DPW for their work after the fireworks as well. I'm not sure if you added that to this.
No, I didn't, but thank you. Okay. All right. We don't have any updates from subcommittees or department heads scheduled tonight. So I will move on to the boards and commission vacancies. The Environmental Commission has a first alternate and a second alternate. Municipal Alliance has a second alternate, and our zoning board has a full membership that is currently vacant. Okay, so now seeing no first readings of ordinance tonight. As discussed, we have 1 second reading, which is ordinance 0625-09.
And that ordinance, the title is an ordinance of Cranberry, Middlesex County, New Jersey, amending Chapter 150, Land Development of the Code of the Township of Cranberry to add a new residential Mount Laurel 5 RMI 5 zone.
Can I get a motion for that ordinance?
I'll move.
Second.
I'll second.
Is there any public comment on Cranberry ordinance number 0625-09? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. TC comment.
Right, then we're going to move on to roll call for the adoption. Mr. Christopher?
Yes.
Mrs. Elbadawi is excused absent. Dr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Kinnear?
Yes.
It's unanimous for member.
Okay, and as we discussed, we added letter H. So can I get a motion to move consent resolutions A through H, or if anyone wants anything pulled out?
So moved.
Okay, second.
I'll second.
Thank you. We're going to move on to roll call. Mr. Christopher?
Yes.
Mrs. Elbadawi excused absent. Dr. Rogers?
Yes.
Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Mayor Kinnear?
Yes.
It's unanimous for members present. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to a work session with our Cranberry Volunteer Fire Company. So I don't know who from the fire company wants to head on up. If you need to grab another chair.
One microphone?
Go from the front.
You want,
Nah, that's okay.
we're all sharing.
I think you can hear me.
Now you gotta use the microphone for the iPad, please.
Oh, I think I fixed it.
On the
Switch.
bottom. There you go, and I would just leave it on, Charlie, while you guys are using it, it's easier. Thank you.
I'm Charlie Smith, Chief of Cranberry Fire Company, President of the Cranberry First Aid Squad. To my right, our attorney, Richard Shackley, and to my left is our president, Richard Zimmer.
Thank you guys for being here tonight. It's been a while, so if you guys would permit me, I thought I'd maybe kind of refresh our path to this working session and the things that led up to it, more so for the general public to catch anybody up or anyone who's new to it. And if I have my timing incorrect on anything, just stop me, interrupt me. I figured. Just so that we make sure that we're all on the same page, since, like I said, it's been a while. The Cranberry Volunteer Fire Company has been contemplating a fire district for many years now. Their board of trustees and their leadership formalized this intent in 2024. Several small meetings were held at the fire department between TC and the company's members to understand the general framework of the district. This prompted a joint working session held between the company, the TD, and the general public here at the library, November 12th, 2024. As well as the public was gathered here so that we could ask questions and gather more information. And the main objective of that work session was to explain the reasons why district model was desired. And if I have it correctly, the 2 main driving factors were a lack of volunteerism that the company was experiencing, and that's been an ongoing problem, and as well as nationally. And then the second reason was a financial gap to cover annual expenses. So that's the main 2 reasons that we discussed in that working session.
The volunteer problem is in the day for the fire department. First Aid Squad already went per diems 2009. We got licensed through the state and did it, and nobody even knew. Nice and easy. So, but now we need some help during the day for the fire department. And we need some help at night for the first aid squad because our guys are getting burned out, so. We had monies in the budget for both of those.
Okay. I captured the hours of training and commitment it takes to qualify to join can be taxing, especially for those that are holding down full-time jobs, like you said, during the day. Okay. All right. You also, at the same time, because of the financial gap, you guys had prepared budget documents that were the current budget, the draft district budget, and also a full paid municipal fire department budget. You had also prepared at that time. Okay.
Yeah,
So-
which those are now 2 years old.
Right.
So,
1 year old, I guess, right?
no, actually 2.
24, 25, okay, all right. Okay, the outcome of that working session was for the team to stand and now do their due diligence on the 3 models, which we just described, right? Stay in current district and then full municipal fire. And then the fire company began actions and the legislative steps to the district model, which is the first one is a petition that was signed by 5% of all registered voters in our municipality. And then in parallel, you created an FAQ document, held info sessions to educate the public, and of course, acquire more signatures during those info sessions if applicable. That petition was submitted to the township clerk, and the signatures were quickly validated. Am I on track so far? Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so as the TC began their research, education, and diligence on the creation of a district, the complexity of the topic became a little bit more clear. So the township decided to commission a feasibility study. The company agreed with that action, and it was conducted by a mutually respected authority of J.P. Monzo Consulting. That completed report can be found on the homepage, cranberrytownship.org. It's titled Analysis of the Financial Impact of Various Fire Service Models for the Township of Cranberry. Both the township and the fire company provided information to the consultant to help in its mission, and we had a few week delay in that. The consultant learned that Branchburg Township was going before the local finance board for approval and application to become a district. This is the first time in 11 years there was an application to the local finance board, so we felt it was relevant and a significant hearing. We all knew that this would provide some insight into the local finance board's approval process and their line of questioning. So that brings us to today, and the process of what it takes to create a fire district is number 1, the petition is in. 2, the governing body now gathers their information, which I just went through. The governing body schedules a formal hearing, which will be this working session at a date we went. So it's a formal hearing on notice to the public at which it determines whether there should be a fire district. If the answer is no, we remain under current conditions. If the answer is yes, then the governing body now drafts an ordinance for the fire district and designating its location. And then before the ordinance is formally introduced, we have to fill out an application, file with the local finance board, and which is part of the Department of Community Affairs. Finance, I'm sorry if this is maddening, and I'll try to post this tomorrow, but it's just important that everybody understands the process. These guys know it in and out. It's more for the public. The local finance board then decides whether any new authority, like a fire district, can be in the state of New Jersey. They must determine if the proposed authority is an efficient and feasible means of providing and financing this project, and they give the needs of and the financial burdens to be placed upon the inhabitants of the local unit. And then we'll schedule a hearing for us to go before them, where we have to include in our application a plan for governance, a plan for funding, and a plan for operation. If the local finance approves the application, we move forward with adopting the draft ordinance, and if there will be an election for the first board of fire commissioners. So that's the process. We are at step 2, which is gathering information. And this follow-up working session is to review the feasibility study and discuss and answer questions. And now I'd like to shut up and hand it over to the Cranberry Volunteer Fire Company for any opening comments or presentations or any recaps that we want to kind of, or correct me on anything I said that was wrong.
No, you've given a detailed report of the whole process. Obviously, we've all looked at the feasibility study. I think it's the fire company's plan and our opinion. The committee that has over 100 30 years of firefighting experience in this town that came up with this plan to a district. You know, we see some discrepancies in Mr. Manzo's report. You know, I don't know if you want us to point those out of what, you know, we might want some clarification on, or what we feel isn't correct. But, you know, for our company at this point, I think we're interested in how this township wants to proceed with this,
Okay.
how the committee feels.
Yeah. I mean, I would take the time on any discrepancies if you want to. This way we can
Well,
through a
just-
discussion so we can.
One of the main ones, on page 14, a couple paragraphs down, it says, as you will see in the department model as proposed by the fire committee, it's more sustainable organization with greater hierarchy with officers and firefighters. We aren't looking for a department model, the way that this is talking, it's under path to a municipal fire department. Cranberry Fire Volunteer Fire Company, you know, our recommendation is going to districting.
We provide the municipal just for the budget purposes. We don't support municipal fire department. I just don't like, people are confused about that, from what I'm hearing around this. And we definitely don't support a
Right.
municipal fire.
The budget was done.
Financially, I mean, it's just, the budget is crazy.
The budget was done as a comparison to the other
Exactly,
models.
right,
We're
right.
trying to provide as much information.
And the way that was
town
worded,
Okay.
I agree with that confusion when I read it too, but I get it.
Thank you.
Like, I understand that you guys aren't looking for that, and I think that's new.
Yeah, we just, a few of our members had, townspeople that came up that read the report and went, wait, you guys are, you know, voicing your opinion on this, but this report, it's saying this, that the fire company does.
That makes sense.
Yeah, they use that for a comp, and then
Okay.
that makes sense to me.
We are talking about. Why don't you just do the discrepancies first and then, you know, so I can do this.
I think that was the main.
That was the main one.
point.
I think one question that we have. Okay.
You know, one other thing that our members have brought is, you know, this person that was hired, you know, it says right in his bio, a seasoned municipal finance professional. You know, this is for fire services. Were there no companies out there that could provide financial plus also fire safety information?
Yes.
This is this report is solely just, like,
Yeah.
from a lot of people's perspective, it's just the dollars and cents.
Again,
Not what's
that's,
good for Cranberry for emergency services.
yeah, I think that when you go through the different models, which we're gonna discuss tonight, I think that that's part of our working session, which is to talk
Okay.
about them together. The title board is to analyze the financial impact of various financial services, so there definitely was a fiscal focus on that. Yeah, financial.
Not operation.
Yeah. And I think that that's where, when we get into the meat of the budget, the difference in the budget that we currently have and the proposed budget, that's where you're talking about a little bit more longer-term operational and the things that you'd be taking over in the district model. So I want to make sure we get to that.
Well, I think the point we're trying to make is the man had no experience in fire and EMS, period, and he's doing a study on fire and EMS. So it's strictly a bean counter, trying to find out what the most financially feasible is, but not knowing what service or how each thing would work. You know what I'm saying?
I don't, because what we got back from you guys, that you were, you know, in agreement that he was a credible resource to be using.
You
So-
hired him, never said, yeah.
Well, we try to use someone objective. So if we're talking about a taxing, if you're trying to talk about a tax increase, that's what we're trying to figure out. Again, the title of the report is focused on financials.
Gotcha.
And that was the scope of work, which is what different models and what would be the financial impact on the residents of Cranberry.
Did Mr. Monzo have experience looking at fire districts, you know? I thought they did.
I thought he did as well, so
Yeah, I'm not
I'll
sure.
take it as a follow-up to go back just on whatever his published credentials are, but I thought that there was a background also. Any other discrepancy?
Not this time.
Okay.
Doesn't address EMS all that much in here either. You think it was just a fire district, I believe. We'll go over everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll get there, make sure sure it's covered.
Start asking questions.
Yeah, I mean, how I like to proceed is everybody individually talk about what your thoughts are and provide feedback to the company so that they know what you're looking at and ask the questions and why you're asking them, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely. So I guess I'll start. So I spent some time earlier this year talking to one of the members of your board. A lot of time while sitting in a hotel room in Boston. And sounds like we had made some good progress, had some really good conversation, and then the Branchburg situation occurred, right? So I think from my perspective, you guys have some sort of an idea of how our situation differs from the Branchburg situation, because at this point, that's the only comp we have over 11 years, and the state shot them down handily. So I'm curious to see if you guys have comp or understand about how those differences arose.
From what we've, had discussions with people, Branchburg was unique. They've already had a shared services contract with, I believe, Bridgewater and one other municipality up in that area.
Somerset.
Yeah, it might be Somerset. Also, their town does not give the maximum allowance every year to the fire company. At the DCA meeting, one of the proposals was to go back and kind of restructure their shared services contract to maybe get a little bit more help and to see about the town providing more money to the fire company for operations. One other thing with Branchburg is they don't include, as far as we know, EMS in their districting plan. Cranberry, we're trying to bring the Cranberry First Aid Squad into the district.
Let me clarify that. We're gonna contract Cranberry First Aid Squad. The district can give them more operational money than the town can. They're capped, okay? The same reason the fire department, if we need more money, capped. So that's one reason, and we can provide them funds for per diems at night when we need them, or as needed, weekends or whatever. It supplements their daytime.
Yeah, as far as the scope of the district, I understand. I think that just as a point of reference, I did not follow the point where they were not getting the full vote that they could have in town as a point of differentiation.
Also, Branchburg, I think there are 3 or 4 fire companies right now trying to go into one district.
So, yeah, they already have shared service. It'd be easier to expand that or them hire more people. I really don't know. It's a totally different
That's
market.
on the PCA, so.
It's interesting, because where I focused, I viewed the transcript from Branchburg, and I almost want to take Branchburg like out of it, right? Because what I did was, I put my mindset as if we were sitting there, and we were on the other side of that table, and we were being asked the same questions, which were completely in line. If you look at like what it takes to create a fire district, they hit on every single one of those like 6 things, and their questions were so methodical around that. And so I got a good sense of what the finance board was looking for, and that to me is where I want to kind of concentrate our dialogue, and I'll wait my turn to do that, but it was almost like we have to be prepared to answer these questions like thoroughly. Where I would Branchburg back in is that they have a very confusing situation there. Like my eyes rolled into my head at one point with this district and that town and that. It was very confusing. But our ability to still answer those core questions, I believe those 4 questions are coming directly at us. And I think that that's where I think we need to do some work, and that's where I'm still in like a discovery mode to work with you guys to answer those questions. Because I think that's the majority of the reason that they didn't answer them well. And they were kicking the can down. That the commission will get there, and it was a lot about budget and stuff like that. So I have like 4 main points, but I just want you to know where I'm coming from, that it's solely as if we have to answer them if we're getting across, because at the end of the day, the township's the one making the application, right? Like, it's not you, it's us on behalf of you and the residents of the town. So we have to.
Presentation.
Yeah, I believe the mayor of Branchburg made
He
the
did.
presentation for it.
Yeah, he
so,
did,
yeah,
he
but
did.
anyway.
And the
Correct.
fire department, if you don't feel comfortable.
Yeah, no, I'm comfortable in that.
Did you want to ask this question?
It's up to you guys. I mean, I don't want to hijack it. I'm overly prepared, so you guys can go and then I can come back.
So I think you had mentioned that in the, thank you for that complete summary because it was really great, Lisa. And thank you for pointing out some of the discrepancies. Appreciate it, and I appreciate everyone being here to listen to you know, just get information so that we're all kind of on the same page as much as we can be. I mean, you guys are actually out in the field. So. One of the areas that the statute mentions quite often is one of the areas that I think needs clarification and carefully being analyzed as the most efficient and feasible means of providing and financing a fire district. The statute actually uses this language. The proposed authority is an efficient and feasible means of providing and financing this project. So, you know, have we looked at, I just want to hear again, what are some of the different fire service models, you know, besides the municipal one? We heard shared services. Can you explain that a little bit more? What the shared services is, what we are now, you know, we do.
All right.
Yeah.
Right now, we're fully volunteer, obviously. Right now, we have what we call a mutual agreement with other towns. So when you get something that you can't handle, they get called in. We also have an automatic aid set up during the day. So if we have an alarm during the day and it's automatically to at 46, or then just those volunteer companies, we don't mess with the big companies because they get tired of running alarms.
That's for hotels.
And that's set up for the hotels and the nursing home and everything.
So that's
Higher occupancy structures.
Well, yeah, but they're everything, they come in. Yeah.
This is mutual aid, like what we're doing right now. Okay.
Well, yeah, there's two, automatic aid, which is when they punch the address in the CAD, they tell they're gonna dispatch Cranberry and East Windsor, one or two, one or the others, okay? When it comes to turnpikes, Cranberry and Hudson, you know, so it's automatic like that. Mutual aid is when you get there and you go, oh man, I gotta call my first alarm. That's when they start sending, okay? Like they did on Cranberry Neck Road, we had 38 tankers. But, so that's mutual aid, you know, depending on what level you need it. You might go to first alarm, second alarm, and that's all predetermined in our book, all right? In our, Jesus, I'm sorry. Anyway, so it's all predetermined.
And who's, I'm sorry, and who's making that alert? Like who, like it goes out?
Which alert? That we want first alarm?
So yeah, the dispatcher, okay, the
Well,
dispatcher.
no, well, I'm calling for it if I need it.
Okay,
You
okay.
could be called for an alarm and I get there and I see smoke, I'm gonna send my first alarm, all right? It's all dispatched out of West Windsor, Emergency Services, County Central.
Can you just explain for the lay people, like different mutual aid and shared services?
Yeah, that's what he's trying to do, he's trying to.
Mutual aid's free. And you only put them, you only use them when you need them. You're not running them out and running back and forth. All right, so that's the big thing.
Shared services might come from.
Shared service is gonna come from another town, the way this reads. So what's the time to, you know, get to the call?
And that's like a paid contract, that a shared service, that's
I would
a
assume it's an
formalized
agreement,
agreement
yes.
with another township, and it's based on, you reach that agreement, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that get the agreement in the other town, because they have to have the capacity to go into a shared service agreement. It's not like you just say, knock on your neighbor's door and say, let's do this together. They actually have to be willing to do it, right, and have the capacity to do it. Okay.
So Brandon has shared services with Somerset or Bridgewater, and they pay.
I would assume, yeah.
And a shared services agreement would likely be with a fully paid fire company, yes?
I would not
Sure.
always, no.
Likely.
Likely, yes.
Likely.
Volunteer crew can't
Fire
always guarantee.
district.
Right, that's what I meant.
So it could be a fire district or a paid, a different model of paid fire.
It could be, yeah, there's gonna be somebody that, whether per diem or
Yeah,
career,
that's- yeah.
either way.
Per
There's
diem.
gonna be somebody at the firehouse waiting.
And do that ahead of time, you make these contracts ahead of time?
I guess, if
You
you wanna
have
make
to.
them, but there's a lot of drawbacks.
No, we're just trying to
Shared
understand, just trying to
services,
like,
yeah.
let's just describe.
And it's likely paid, a full paid municipality, because they have,
No, not necessarily.
well, you just said that likely, I'm only saying that because they probably have,
We-
they have the manpower.
We could hire 4
consistent
per diems We could hire 4 per diems and sell our services to East Windsor during the day. So we'd have money coming in instead of financing their budget. They would finance our budget, which to me makes sense.
Okay, so let me just explain. A shared services agreement is an agreement between 2 different governmental entities. It's a recognition that not everybody can offer every service, and sometimes it makes sense to combine efforts so that, for instance, like here, we operate our own municipal court. We have a shared service agreement with Plainsboro because it's more efficient that way. So any municipal service that you have, fire is one of them, can be the subject of a shared service agreement with another municipal entity or another governmental entity. It's a contract that you enter into with that other entity. So it could be Cranberry could enter a shared services agreement with somebody else who provides fire protection, like another town, Heights Town or Plainsboro, or with another governmental entity like a fire district. That fire district would then have to expand its jurisdiction to include Cranberry if that was the direction to go. So it's much different than what we're talking about mutual aid. Mutual aid is just an understanding among emergency responders that they need help, and there are people who can help and are ready to help. Shared services is a contractual relationship between governmental entities.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I thought we did brief, kind of like a gut check of our surrounding towns, and we didn't feel, or we researched it and didn't feel that there was a viable shared service model in the immediate area. I think because Plainsboro, I believe, because of what they just went through, they're just getting into their new normal, was not interested in that, and we felt that, I thought that we had done some diligence around that, and that was the largest of everyone else is in a similar situation where they're clamoring for volunteers and all their signs are in front of their fire department going, volunteers needed. So they were organizations that were stressed and probably couldn't provide a shared service to us. That's my recollection of my notes of the shared service model. If anyone else has anything that contradicts that or aligns with it, just let me know, but that's what I have in my notes.
There's other factors as well as procedures and policies and procedures, one town to another. Could be mixing one county to another. Delayed response times. NFPA 1720, I believe. 1710, I think, is paid. It's 5 minutes on scene with 5 firefighters. You're not gonna make it from another town. I believe that's the statute. I have to look it up for sure. We spent, 1710, I'm sorry. We spent about an hour on the phone with the fire safety on Thursday. We spoke with the head of that department, and his first assistant. They commended us for what we're doing as far as taking the lead in this and being proactive and wanted to take care of our town in the most cost-efficient way we can, and the way that we can actually work with it and not create more stress and not lose volunteers. I think a report says, I know it says, that the best way to retain and recruit volunteers is through a fire district. It says it, I think that's the last, our last sentence in that one part, so. I tell you, we've been thinking about this for 5 years, and we put a lot of thought into it. We have a lot of expertise, and I tell you what, I think it's, and we're plotting into it as well. They need help, so financially, and, you know, an ambulance is $400,000. I don't know if you realize that or not. You used to buy them for $85, $90. You know, so money's an issue.
Yeah, I think that's where Branchburg was pretty good with explaining. Again, I don't want to keep harping on Branchburg as a town, but it's sort of the answers to the questions and the questions that were asked, which is things cost more now, right? And there was also, you know, that history that they went through.
Well, I just want to finish this.
Yes, keep going.
As I,
Keep it up.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, and it's just that when I read this, I just sort of, when I make my decision, that's what I feel like we're getting this information from you. You know, it just seems like the statute's written as the most efficient and feasible means of providing financing, you know. So we're going through the different models. So so we have shared service, we have mutual aid, and then we have the municipality one, which seems exorbitant.
Mutual aid, well, anyway.
And-
Mutual aid is already in place, it's been in place for
Right.
hundreds.
No, and we're just saying the different models. You know, and the shared service seems to be a regional approach, which you're saying would take more time to get to Cranberry, I get that. But going alone, if we look at the financial part, becomes expensive. You know, I mean, and it's, but are we situated, are we in a place, these are thoughts that I just have been coming up with, are we in a place where, you know, where there are multiple fire districts or paid departments that could potentially do a different model? I know you thought this through, you know, but are we?
I don't know of any other models, I mean,
No, the shared service, like where we could contract with someone.
no,
Okay.
you just, I think Lisa just kind of crossed that out. If I'm correct, Lisa?
Again, anyone can go back and look at their notes. I'm pulling from my notes from the last work session we had when we talked about it, and then we lightly investigated it, made some phone calls like you guys probably did, and just knowing the general area, and if that's the rule, 5 minutes and 5 men, we're hard pressed to achieve that.
So it was in the study, the feasibility study, to look at that. So I'm
To
just-
look at it, right, to
Right.
look at a shared service,
Yes.
but we had previously discussed it, which is why it was part of the feasibility study to flush it through. And then what the finances that were, like all the other ones, like would that contract cost us on average with another municipality?
Early on, we discussed that when we presented this to you the first
Correct.
time and said that's really not feasible. We didn't waste time really giving a price. Who knows what it's gonna be?
Yeah.
And the problem with that, your money's going out of town. You want your tax money to go out of town. If you can keep it in town and do a better job.
And that, again, that was part of why we included the feasibility study to flush it
Right.
through, like everything else, and also that's the part we're on, is diligence, right, so.
And the other thing, you stick your neck in the noose because they could, next contract, they could double the cost. They say, oh, you know what, we're losing money on you, we want another 100,000 a year. So, you lose control in a number of ways.
So, net, right, we're here really to discuss status quo for the district, right? Shared service does not seem like a viable opportunity. A full municipal department is clearly not a viable opportunity. So, we're gonna, and this is from a good place, I promise, but I wanna ask difficult questions here. So when we get asked them there, we're prepared to answer them either together or as Lisa as a representative, or whatnot. In the document that you put out, that was the creation of the Cranberry Fire District, number 3, there's a few bullets under there that essentially said, it'll offer several notable benefits, most of which felt very status quo, right? Ensure the continued delivery of reliable emergency services, enable efficient resources, precise budgeting. I presume you guys are doing that today. I know you guys are doing that. And to some level, improve accountability, transparency, and responsiveness. You guys are wildly responsive today. Like those bullets, you do that today, right?
Yes.
And super proud of you guys for doing that work, because it's God's work for sure. The question that I have in looking at this potential new model, we're talking about an average increase of about $450 per household in taxes. What is that $450 a year to all of the folks in the audience and all the folks listening at home? What does that additional $450 a year represent?
It represents daytime, guaranteed time coverage during the week. It represents everything in here. It represents us being able to maintain our equipment and not have to purchase new equipment as often because we maintain our old stuff. A pumper is $2 million now, you know, but, towers probably 2.5 or 3. So a pumper's about 1.25 million. A tower's over 2 million. All right, so equipment that we keep at top-notch levels, and it costs money. We just had a leak in it. So, you know, it's 30 grand here, 20 grand there, but in the long run, it's worth it, okay? Because they don't get a lot of use, you know, they're not being burned out. The other thing is the transparency is the big thing. Now, you have a board of 5 fire commissioners who get elected by it puts power back in the taxpayers' hands. They get elected by the taxpayers. They vote, the taxpayers vote on the initial budget. taxpayers vote if the budget goes beyond the 2% cap, and the taxpayers vote on all capital equipment, or capital improvements, or capital equipment. We would also take the firehouse out of your hands, both firehouses in the lot. It's one less maintenance headache you guys would have. That would be the commissioner who would take care of it. Everything would have to go to state contract or bid, all right? Fire marshal's office would come under, they're gonna help with the supervisory and the paperwork for the scheduling of the per diems, all right? And there's a number of positives to it.
So essentially though, so I'll say, again, most of that work is already happening, but we know there's a shortfall.
There's a shortfall.
So as far as oversight and management and whatnot, right, like currently it's our budget, the township budget. Now, some of it's just in our budget,
Correct.
but then there's that additional $450 per household, which is essentially just covering the shortfall, is what I'm
Correct.
hearing, right? You guys are providing the same services today as you will.
No, because we're guaranteed, we're gonna have to go to the firehouse during the day. It's a crapshoot right now. If you get a call during the day, if there's people in town, fine, if not. If the fire marshal's office is working today, then we got one extra, you know what I'm saying? And if I'm in town and not working elsewhere, I'll go to them. And, you know, it's a crapshoot during the day, I'm telling you right now. So that's where the extra money comes.
Right.
Plus the extra money to each organization to their equipment and stay in operation. Plus, it's gonna give you ambulance at night, guaranteed, 2 people sitting at the building like they do during the day now. Not guaranteed, it's never guaranteed, they could be on another call, you get another call, obviously. It's gonna improve the service to this town and make it a safer town all the way around, as far as I'm concerned.
I think, my main question, looking through, the minutes from the branch, or the transcript of the, meeting with the local finance board, and then going through the consultant's report. It seems like the last time, a fire district went before the local finance board was 2014, and it was shot down. Branchburg, which just got shot down. I know you guys said there were some differences, but I guess my question is, let's say we agree, because I'm not opposed to this idea. Let's say we as a committee agree to a fire district and we move forward, and the local finance board shoots it down. What's plan B? What do you guys have?
Plan B would be backstep and take another look at it, to be honest with you. Possibly some type of shared service, but like I say, it's not gonna be as good a service as we give it with the district. All right, I know there hasn't been in a while, but I think our situation is unique, definitely for Branchburg, there's no question about that. A lot of the fire districts, they haven't done them lately, come back in the 70s and 80s. And we had a rapport with our council and with the town, and we didn't do it then. If we needed something, generally, we got it, you know what I'm saying? We didn't have the volunteer problem during the day because everybody left work and went to the calls. SWAT didn't have a problem, they had more volunteers at night during the day, so. We're unique, I would say, definitely nothing like Branchburg.
If I could ask opinion of you two gentlemen, you obviously probably read the Branchburg transcripts. Like what is your take on what the local finance board thought? Because it was 7-1. Like what do you think they didn't get, or what do you think they would want?
Well, part of it, as mentioned earlier at this meeting, Branchburg does not receive the full allotment from their municipality at this time, and the DCA made it clear that they wanted them to go back and see if they could work with the town to have the town increase their fine, cover these shortfalls. Whereas right now, here in Prairie, we're lucky that our town council gives us the full amount. But as Charlie mentioned, with modern equipment today, everything's going up in cost. So when a minor problem occurs, like we've said, Cranberry has always historically, we've taken care of our stuff. We've had trucks, I think before this tower that we had, our ladder truck was from 1952.
No, 64.
Oh, 64, sorry. But we ran that until the 2000s because we took care of it. So, that's part of Branchburg. I think the DCA saw that there's money still out there in the community, and they wanted to try and come up with some type of agreement before they established, this district, that route.
also had the shared services established. Why not expand on that?
Yeah.
And they didn't include EMS. I think we knew from the start, 5 years ago, it's a crapshoot, all right? We put hundreds of hours, spent a lot of money, all right? But we want to do what's best for Cranberry, all right? Not what the most financially, thing might be or whatever. And we'll approach the DCA and give it our best shot. If you're down, you go back to the drawing board, you can apply again.
Yeah, we've been told by, people that have been through this process that, sometimes when it's denied by DCA, it's because of budgeting, and they just want to see a new budget that they feel like, more in line with what, I guess, their thoughts are of how it should be, so.
Can I ask a question? So, local finance board is just that, finance. That's what they care about, really that's all they care about. You just said something at the beginning about wanting to do what's best for Cranberry in terms of fire safety, as opposed to just the budget. But local finance looks at the budget.
Correct.
And so I'll ask you, or maybe attorney, is there a role for presenting testimony before them about the impact on fire safety, in addition to information about the budget?
Oh, absolutely, we could do that. I think if we want to move ahead in this direction, I think we might be getting ahead of ourselves at this meeting, but we'll all have to sit down in a closed session or whatever and hash things out and come up with a report and make a presentation. It's hard to be done, you can't do it in a meeting, I'm sorry, you know what I'm saying, there's just too much detail.
Yeah,
First thing we're gonna have to do is do our budget, because it's 2 years old.
Yeah, and again, my whole mindset is the questions that they were asking. It wasn't the
Right.
answers, and when I came across it, your proposed annual budget is significantly higher. I'm not sure in the financials that I saw the justification for the total amount that's projected, which makes complete sense in their case. So that's just one. I just want to make sure we do the work together to be like, that line makes sense, that line makes sense, that line makes sense, because anything inflated seemed to immediately go up on their radar of like a money grab, and they were very sensitive to the taxpayers. So that was one that I kind of highlighted out. It didn't seem like as big of a gap as there was, which was high, but it's still, like, I'm sensitive to it, and I still feel like that's probably the follow-up work that needs to be done.
Well, and that's one thing, the account that we selected to help us with this process has been, he's an accountant for other local districts, mainly a couple municipalities, townships that are kind of similar in size to Cranberry. So that's why we felt, some of the numbers he came up with, data that we had, that we were able to get from, the township for, budgeting items, that we're not really that far off. We did realize the first year, there's gonna be a little bit higher amount in the budget for getting the district started. But hopefully then, those numbers possibly could go down a little bit.
Yeah, because that's one of the questions asked was, to the mayor, was like, are you going to decrease your budget at the municipal level to offset the gap between that and that? And it was like, oh, that's an interesting thing for us to discuss, that if we have room to potentially unburden the taxpayer, that's something that we haven't discussed as a whole. So even though you're asking for an inaugural budget, of course it's gonna be higher, like any startup would be,
Right.
but is there anything the municipality could then do to help mitigate that? And then it wouldn't be $400 and something, potentially it could be $300 to the tax, whatever it is. But that was one question that they asked, which again, very focused on finance, but also the finances of the taxpayer. It was a lot of what I was feeling from their questions.
Lisa, you have a pool in your backyard, right?
I do.
You know what they charge me for my pool? $400. Every year, $400. So what's $400 for fire protection EMS?
Oh, I understand.
It's not a lot of money.
I
I don't,
was like,
you know what I'm saying?
I was like,
I'm paying $400.
I was like,
swimming 6 months out of the
PSCG
year.
charges me a lot more than $400 a month.
No, I'm talking, the tax bill, it's reflected
No, I
on my
understand.
tax bill.
I got it.
It's not a lot of money to
And
people who live in Cranberry, I don't feel.
And again,
And you have the ratables across the highway that's
Yeah.
gonna help.
and I know you guys know this, and again, that's more why we're here, is to make sure that there's no surprises. So I've got probably a hard ball and I've got a softball. You guys choose which one you want me to throw at. But I want you to understand that I'm asking the question because I know we're gonna be asked the question. And so the softball is, what kind of community outreach did you do? And you guys, I've run through it before. I'm willing to do it again and now and sooner, just to have a couple more information sessions.
That was part of the finance board's push.
There was also that, was like, you know, they didn't expect to do an advertising campaign, but I think that we need to make it clear that this is what your tax bill looks like now, this is what your tax bill is gonna look like. We're adding an extra line item, that the fire district acts as its own body. They have their own commissioners that are on there. They propose a budget, they have meetings, they have minutes, they act like Board of Ed, they act like the governing municipality here. I just think like, even showing a mock tax bill of this to that, forget numbers, but getting the public familiar with really how this affects them. I'll donate my time, we can get it through in August, and any other TC member wants to attend them. I think they need to see that we're doing the diligence and working to get the answers, because as you guys all along, privately and in meetings, my sole purpose is that you have the support of this community. That's what our job is up here to do, is that we respond to that and say, now you have our support because the town understands it and supports you. And that's our job. It doesn't matter that it's the 5 votes and we have to go to the board for approval. It's the matter that we feel that the majority of the public in this town has a firm grasp on this topic. And some recent events have made this even more important to me.
We understand 100%, and we want the town behind us too. Of those 200 signatures, we had nobody say no. We explained to them the cost. And nobody would say, no, I'm not gonna sign. We had one guy who said, I'm not gonna sign, because I don't want to. But he had a Union County FOP hat on, so, you know, he's a union. We've seen nothing but positive feedback from the town. And our sessions we held really didn't have a big turnout. Great.
Yeah,
A lot of the same people, there was maybe 25 people that were interested.
Yeah, I think that's an important point. I think the numbers that you had to get, I'm glad you got those numbers, but I think it should have been higher. I mean, 200 people out of 4,000, to Lisa's point, I think the word needs to be spread.
That was the percentage.
No, I
by the
I'm
state
fine,
here, I mean,
I'm not disparaging.
We would have been more than happy to
Yeah.
get more signatures, you know.
Yeah.
I needed 10 to run for re-election, so if you want to talk about numbers, really?
And some of these information, for information sessions, you know, a lot of the public, a lot of the questions revolve around some financial stuff that just wasn't pertinent at that time.
Yeah.
We tried to explain that the further we get into this process, which I think we're at now, I'm eager to get our accountant again, propose a new budget.
Yeah.
And get more firmer numbers, and, you know, then we can, you know, answer some more questions to the general public.
Let me see, can I make one statement? I'll say that.
So, getting back to Brantford real quick, I think that they had the misfortune, I'm looking at the items on the menu, or on the schedule for the meeting, immediately prior to Brantford putting their application in. Plainsboro. was the dissolution of the Plainsboro Fire District. And so the optics of that are really bad, right? I mean, obviously they come into it and they're like, oh wait, we just dissolved one of these. So, but then, I think it's probably complicated why Plainsboro got dissolved, but I think part of it was the budget kept going up, right? It was like firefighters gone wild. It was like, they just sort of kept asking, what kind of, I know you can't make this, but what kind of assurances can we give the township that, oh yeah, it's $450 this year, but it's not gonna be $1,100 next year, $1,500 next year?
2% cap, you vote on it.
But Plainsboro went,
Well, they went.
Plainsboro also tried to get full pages, 24 hours a day.
Right. And what they also did was they didn't turn in financials to the DCA for 3 years. So the DCA really didn't do their job either. They should have been on top of it 3 years earlier, so public record. They weren't, I don't know what happened. I worked with the guy that actually formed the district. And years ago, I always praised Plainsboro for the model of volunteers working with paid. And somewhere along the line, it got buzzed. It got the other way. And unfortunately that happened. And I would guess it would be the commissioner's fault, I was thinking. But, yeah, you got your 2% caps. You always get a vote on anything over 2%. We're not gonna go buy 5 new fire trucks, or unless you vote for it, but we're not gonna raise your taxes like for no reason. We would bond them and so forth. the budget is somewhat inflated, because when you start a business, you gotta build some surplus. You can't just run shoestring the first year of it. So, I think that explains it. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, well, our thought also is, you know, with the per diem firemen being hired, you know, the district model, you know, if we get a surge of younger kids, which we're kind of in that right now, we have a good amount of over-year firemen and, you know, young gentlemen and ladies who have gone through fire school. The company just had two in the last month that graduated fire school, so are now, you know, full-time firefighters, you know, for the volunteers. You know, if we get a surge of those people volunteering again, we may not need to have as many per diem firemen around and hired.
Or fill in season,
Yeah.
have nobody another. That's the beauty of per diems. You're not
So
committed to
that
any.
was, I'm glad you brought that up, because, that, like, it was really nice on the 5th of July, I got to talk to you guys, and I was, it was really great to hear that you had a surge of volunteers, which, so, but it sounds like it kind of goes, like, you know, surges kind of
We're
in
talking
young
about
people
that.
might, yeah, talked about that, exactly.
Historically, Cranberry, the kids go to college, the kids don't move back to Cranberry.
But, so on these surges, can you maybe pinpoint something that helps get those volunteers? Like, did you do something special or?
Well, over the years, our chief has gone to Princeton High School, had a session with the kids over at the high school. Yeah, I don't know if it has been done in a few years. We make it very known, the fireworks, Cranberry Day, any public function where the fire company we're set to, that's one of our main goals, being there, is talking about volunteerism and seeing if people might be interested. We've gotten one or two members that, you know, they don't want to do structural firefighting. We started a branch of
Rescue
our,
arm.
rescue, you know, kind of volunteer. So they're not required to go to fire school, but they can still, you know, do a lot of firefighting things to help out the fire company.
And do rescue.
And, you know, so we try and recruit that way. I think it's kind of known through the young kids. Every Monday night, that's where a majority of our fire company is right now. They're all down at the firehouse training. And we've had people come in, actually we have a couple people from Plainsboro,
I was just gonna say.
from like the Ravens Crest area that,
They basically.
I hate to say it, the volunteers were kind of pushed out of Plainsboro with everything going on over there. And they've got the credentials, they've got the training, they're close, they're looking to
That's
become a
in the
member of us.
process of, they're not members yet, but they're.
Yeah, they're in the process.
So, would you say you have enough I'm just asking.
You never have enough volunteers.
Okay, and how many do you have? These are just nuts and bolts.
We're getting on the rolls, but actually,
Hold it up.
like,
Nuts and bolts.
active, like, showing up for everything, we have probably 12 to 15,
And how many volunteers do you have on your books? Just 20.
about 20.
So 20 all actively show up. And
Well, at one time, it could be 12 today.
I know this is,
4 other guys in the next time.
and what would be an ideal number to show up? Like,
12 gets the job done.
12 gets the job.
Yeah,
But there's no wiggle room on the 12, yeah, okay, yeah.
We can always have more. I'd love to get when I joined fire department, we were parked all the way halfway down, we parked on Main Street to get to it, and we get every truck out every time. And we
I
had
think,
three.
I think this is really good to just
I only had
understand.
3, but
Barbara, in years past, I mean, I have an office, Stockton Street, at North Academy in Hightstown. We get a fire call at like 10:30 in the morning, and I'm the driver of the first truck. I don't have a light in my car, I mean, I go a little bit over the speed limit, I think that says a lot, like, I'm coming from a town away, and I'm the driver for the truck.
yeah, but remember, there's a chief on scene already, or a marshal, whatever you do.
No, I appreciate it.
So-
We're all, like, I think it's really
And that's
important.
the thing, we don't have the members like we used to have that own businesses or companies in town. I remember in the 80s as a kid, you had 15 guys right in the middle of the day that they were able to just close up shop and run down to the firehouse for a fire call. Most people are working out of town, and it's very rare, they've always got a business here in town, one or two other people might, it's tough during the day, that's the biggest.
I know this kind of, like, so we have maximum, is there a minimum?
Well, the, ISO, C20, which is for volunteers, Well, actually, if you go out on a call, you're supposed to have 2 firefighters in the building, 2 firefighters out.
Four, okay.
And that doesn't include the driving, because technically if they're driving, they're not supposed to be putting a pat on and running to the building.
I only have one more, Barbara, done.
No, I'm done with my volunteer part. I have like my little categories, so, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna be a pessimist for a minute, right? We sit in front of the DCA, they say no. This process is at least 5 years long, right? You guys have been working on this for at least 5 years, maybe longer. Runway now, maybe another 5 years, right? Who knows? They say no, we've gotta reapply, we gotta go through all this process again.
That would be another 4 years.
Yeah, hypothetically, right? No,
Hopefully.
so let's say it's another 2, right? It's another.
Typically, I'm sorry to interrupt. Yeah, typically they'll give a reason. They're supposed to give a reason. The statute says they're supposed to give a reason. Not given a reason yet.
They
It's
didn't
a
give a
plan,
reason, right.
which.
Branchburg.
Right,
Branchburg, I'm sorry.
Yeah, there ain't no reason, right?
I beg your pardon. Not given a reason to Branchburg.
Right,
But we,
that's my fear.
we reach out to their clerk for when they give the reason, because the statute says they're supposed to give the reason. But the reason I'm bringing this up is, once they give that reason, a subsequent application can be tailored to those reasons that they give.
Sure, but again, hypothetically, let's say there's a 1, let's say a year, maybe 2, right? Things take a while, you never know. Maybe it takes them 6 months to actually give that reason. Let's see,
How many days did they have?
what do we,
Well, implicitly, the statute seems to say 60 days. There's 60 days.
Which is ironically today.
It is.
It's true, it's July 14th. They were there on May 15th, May 14th.
outside of the details of the window, whatever that time window ends up being, how do we mitigate all our existing issues between now and then?
Same way we've done it for the last 50 years. We do the best we can with what we got. Like I say, we have automatic aid during the day for our alarms and everything. We have mutual aid all the time. All right, so, I mean, we're getting the job done.
Yeah, okay.
We're looking to the future, you know what I'm saying? That not just today, but down the road.
And one part of that is, unfortunately, you would see, like, say we're here this time next year. Okay, so town council gives the fire company and the first aid, the money to run what we need to run. But we have something break on one of the trucks. We may not be in the financial situation to call our company and say, get down here, this broke, and, you come down to the firehouse. That piece of equipment might be out of service. Possibly a month, possibly 2 months. Like I said, we've been fortunate enough, but the fire company can't financially keep coming up with the shortfall.
And then you're
with
putting
some of this
pressure on your
stuff.
mutual aid.
Exactly.
Is that what you're doing at that point,
And
right?
quite honestly, there are some mutual aid companies that have said, don't call us unless you have, unless you have spoken fire. You've called us so many times,
That's another town, but they haven't said that to us.
Yeah,
Not to, okay, I didn't know that was.
Clarify.
sorry.
I just want to go back and clarify, like, the oversight of finances. That's not on a fire district. That's actually on the finance board side. They have like no oversight guidelines, if I'm not mistaken, from the research that we all did. They're not, which is, I think, what enabled Plainsboro to kind of, be the wild, wild west out there with money, is because they don't have like an oversight committee. It's not like the same as the requirement to have CFO here, or like the way the board of ed has to manage their money. There's not a lot of oversight that's forced down from the board. Am I incorrect?
Well, there's
Besides the 2% cap.
Besides
Yeah.
the 2% cap.
I mean, the fiscal affairs law would apply, but every year a fire district has to submit a budget for DCA approval. And every year they have to have an audit, and the budget and the audit are also put on the website. So given, I'm not sure how Plainsboro got as far as it did.
Yeah.
But there are those controls. I mean, typically, no, there wouldn't be a full-time CFO or even a part-time CFO, but there are some.
Well, in their
there's
case,
supposed
it
to be
was a
some-
laptop and books, so
Yeah,
my assumption is we're gonna do better than that. Right,
there's no doubt,
yeah,
no doubt.
okay. All right, here's my awful question that I have to ask, but I'm just gonna say it again. It's from the lens of the board. The first question they asked, very first question was quote unquote, what other options did you consider aside from the fire district concept What other concepts did you explore in these discussions? Through shared service.
Been through,
We've been through a full municipal paid fire department. And we understand the contribution of mutual aid to our existing model and where we are today. Okay. They did ask, there are questions in here about the township providing per diem. I already know your pushback on it, and I understand your logic for it. We can discuss it privately. We're gonna have to have an answer to it that we all agree on of why that's not an option. So again, I don't wanna, we've been doing great all night. I totally understand your guys' perspective, but my lens is, you're gonna answer that question under oath of, we've explored all four of these and we've still come to this.
I have an answer that I would rather not say in public.
And that's okay, that's okay, but again,
We have the answer.
even if we had concessions that said that the per diems were not under the township administrator and we made other accommodations for that. The main goal here is that you want to be a separate entity from the town and run that way. But we're still, again, we can discuss it outside of this working session, but we still need an answer to it. We're gonna be asked, and they're gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we hit 4, we're gonna not, we gotta have it locked down.
Understood, and we will talk about it outside, and we will have an answer, but that ties into the local finance board and the standard that has to be met for them to, and that is efficiency, efficiency and feasibility. And the answer to that is related to efficiency in terms of the chain of command.
Which is their number one goal. Like,
Absolutely.
right, I mean, that's
Absolutely.
their stated mission statement. And that's their role of approving or defeating a motion.
That's what I
Correct.
Yep. All right.
We do have the answer.
I didn't want to end on that note, but I still needed
No,
to
sir.
make sure that
Come on,
we,
keep throwing.
but you understand my point. We gotta cut through everything.
Absolutely, I agree with you
That's the whole
100%.
point. So I do want to go back on the community outreach, if you guys are okay. Again, I just want to, I think we just need to quickly build momentum, and if you do it with, us involved, I'm telling you, I'll give my bit to help people, but I think quickly getting people, I know that, I was happy to see on social media that people are actually, read the feasibility study, did some homework, had questions of their own, and hopefully during public comment, we'll hear some of that, but I just wanted to make sure that we are committed
Lisa,
to
Before
doing
you,
that.
before you go to that, I still have questions on things.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm still on this, so I'm trying to understand, currently, what are the high cost expenses that, that you guys can't cover, like currently?
We're covered everything. Right now.
I mean, okay, so everything's being covered right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're maintaining our
So
equipment.
does the town, like if in the budget, when you ask for things, the township has covered the expenses that are needed?
Through our finance, our savings over the years, we've had to drastically dip into those. The 168,000.
We have an
We're
endowment.
allotted from the town, as mandated by the state as the maximum. Doesn't even come close just to,
Takes care of
last year's, truck.
Some years are better than others.
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, things are being covered, but you're taking
Yeah,
out of
but
the donations that you've had and.
Out of donations and, yeah.
And our endowment we received, and we draw off of that. We don't touch the principal, we draw off of that like a fiduciary company would do.
And I think what's gonna have to be provided is audits too, and you've been providing the township audits of what's been going on too?
We provide them our annual financial statement.
So we have a current one too, or is that going to be?
If you would, I gave it to squads, I don't know if you had the fire, give it to you. It's no big deal.
Not 24 yet, but our audit just got passed for 2024, so I don't even know if they have the 2024
We
yet.
don't, when you say audit, we're not gonna spend $40,000 every year. We give a financial statement every year from our.
Which is sufficient by the state for
Right.
what's needed to be provided.
Okay, I just wanted, and so then that updated will be the update to what you're gonna provide, because we're 2 years behind on.
With the budget, it's gonna show it's also more than.
There's
The
no
fire
doubt
company's
here,
budget
just
is not gonna
providing
reflect
information,
this.
Yeah. Okay, so then back to, back to how a fire district is formed. Three things, it's the governance, funding, and operations, so we're talking about funding. So how do you recruit your commissioners? And will that board of commissioners include fire chief? But if you do, then you can't.
There wouldn't be a recruitment for commissioners, anybody who's a voting citizen of Cranberry, excluding township council members, the fire chief, president.
Believe me, we have people in mind.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want people with some firefighting background, but you also want somebody with some financial background. But it's not as though us as a fire company is gonna go out and try and say, oh yeah, you need to be the, anybody can run. It's just like town council. Well, yeah, I know, like I just said,
Right.
you're on town. Yeah.
You can't be chief, deputy, president, or vice president. That's the restrictions.
Yeah,
Barb, I don't know why
if
you're
you
so
are,
worried
then you
about me
can't
running for
go
commissioner.
out.
I've heard that a couple times.
Okay.
What's that process? Like,
Yeah.
how do you get, like, on the ballot? Like,
Yeah, so it's a ballot thing, right?
So, it depends whether the election is at the, general election in November, or if it's at the annual election, the third Saturday in February. But in either case, persons have to get petitions, enough people to sign a petition, and they're presented to the individual, and if it's the general election, it's the township clerk. If it's the annual election, it's the board clerk. To qualify to be placed on the ballot, and then at the election, their names are placed on the ballot, and they're elected like in any other election. 2 years? 3 years.
And you have volunteerism now, hopefully you'll have enough commissioners for the board. Okay, you don't think there'll be any,
Have plenty.
okay.
So is,
And anybody can run, anybody can get out. You could have.
In your report, in appendix 2, in 40A 1471 nominating petitions, it goes right there.
No, and I get
So
that.
that's the report you have to.
Just to be clear, commissioner is an elected position.
Right.
Township residents are eligible to run, and they run elected office just like you.
and so if it happens during the general election, then the management of that process is on the township clerk? If it happens in the February election, then you're managing that process?
But I'm shooting for this February.
Like all of it? Like the whole full workers, like all of that kind of things balanced? Okay, that's,
We got a budget number.
okay.
I just want to know if I gotta work it or not. I'm asking, I'm asking my own question.
We're gonna go to shared services, see if we can get it cheaper.
I just want to know about election, that's all, thanks.
We can hire you.
So I guess my concern is I just don't want those commissioners to deplete the volunteers that you have.
No, because you can be a volunteer and a commissioner.
And,
Yeah.
Yeah, you just can't.
You just can't be
president, vice president.
okay, yeah, hey, I'm just
I understand.
putting it out there because this is a public meeting and it's.
I just have a quick logistical question. If you guys go before the local finance board and you get shot down, do you need to come back to us for another? No?
It means that we can't put through the draft ordinance and that we have 60 days to appeal that round, correct?
Well, I don't know, you can resubmit an application. The 60-day time limit is really on the board.
On their side.
That's on their
Got it.
side to act, but you can resubmit an application. I don't recommend you put the same application.
Wait for the reason. Yeah.
Exactly, and then you can submit another application.
I just want to get my question. Okay, so this application includes the governance, which we just talked about, and funding. I just wanted to ask, have you, yes, we're gonna raise, it's through taxes. Have you guys considered, seeking grants or anything like that? Are there grants out there for funding purposes?
There are grants, unfortunately, in the past, we never qualified for a grant because of our endowment, to be quite honest.
Okay. Oh, that's interesting. That's.
One of the last major grants we went for was to replace all of our airbags.
Right.
And it was a grant to Johnson & Johnson.
Okay, we get it.
That we didn't get that.
Which is not, I mean, not good for us, but the companies that are really scraping by, that's what it's meant for.
does come down to finances, you know, and I'm gonna have to vote to raise taxes, you know, to instance, and for some people, for like, ultimately $455 may not be that much, but there are people on fixed incomes that we have to consider. So, you know, I am very sensitive towards that, you know, and, people are tired, and, you know, we're getting more and more retirees, and, you know, I'm just very sensitive towards that.
Can I remind you one thing, can I break in here? They vote on the original budget. The day they elect the original commissioners, they vote on the initial budget. So they do have a say. Correct? Rich?
Well, there's a differentiation on the voting between whether the election is at the general election or at the annual election. So at the annual election, it's commonly said that the voters vote on the budget, which is kind of a misnomer. They actually vote on the tax levy. If it's the general election, they vote if the district goes over the cap. But in terms of the initial budget, I think you may be right. I'd have to
I think
double
that's
check.
what we said
That's right.
years ago.
Say that again. I'm
I
sorry.
think, I have to double check about the initial budget, the very initial budget. I'm not sure if that is voted on, even if it is the general election. If it's the annual election in February, the budget is always voted on by the voters, and they are, sometimes they're voted down. And then the district has, or the township council or committee, or whatever the governing body form is, which has an opportunity to make cuts.
Similar to a school district, I believe, school budget.
Yes, for those school budgets where the election is still held in May. May.
So, like,
Are you still in finances?
Yes, just
Okay.
one more thing, like, so what additional, like, so you're gonna be your own entity, what administrative costs do you see? Like, you said finance, right, and what other administrative costs, overhead costs do you see?
They're in our budget. We have a copy, correct?
Right, but in public, you could just say it, you know, so that this is.
I don't have my budget in front of me, sorry. Rich will take it. I can't read it.
Election expenses, legal and accounting, advertising, public awareness, commissioner salaries, part-time administrator, that's for administrative. Those are the categories that the accountant gave an administrator.
It's just like a layer of administration in the budget,
Well, it's not an organization, you need administration.
right?
But it's spelled out in the budget, so you know where it's at.
Isn't the annual budget voted every year?
Again, if it's the February election, the budget, technically the tax levy, is voted every year, if it's the February election.
Right.
Even below the 2%?
Even if it's
Yes.
below the 2%, yeah.
So in other words, the taxpayers are approving the budget,
Correct.
just like the schools.
And staying on that for a second, again, like administrative, you have operational expenditures, if you happen to have capital expenditures that are there, and then, you know, other operating expenses, and then hopefully you have some revenue, right? Like basic P&L. But question, you had mentioned prior that this sheet is 2 years old, so it needs to be updated. I assume that's pretty quick work, or no?
I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean, you're just gonna review it and see what, any inflationary things that you have to put in there? Okay, all right, just wanted to capture that as an action item that everybody expects it potentially higher, potentially lower, potentially the same, don't know yet.
What has gone down in the last 5 years? We don't expect a huge increase, but we have to bring it up to the cost of living.
The temperature in my pool, because I don't pay for my heating. Back to the pool.
Community. Okay, so, and the third, and you've already answered this, it's just this, the application, I just want to be thorough with what's, you know, so we have operations, and you've already, I think you've already answered this, where would we get the personnel daytime? You're considering, contracting other fire companies or anything like that? Or
No, as
per
we did.
diem, or what? Like,
As we did in the first aid squad, we advertised for help, for per diem help. We have about 22 on the rolls of the squad.
so you see it as a way?
Yeah, it's always per diem. We never
Okay.
thought of any other way of doing it.
Okay.
put an ad in the paper. We all got friends, I got people knocking on my door, to be quite honest with you, so. There's people interested in working.
And I already asked you that, like what other overhead, so aren't you happy about that?
Thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
My last one, I promise. You've alluded to the endowment you guys have. I'm gonna guess it's not like Harvard size.
Of course not.
Is that number going to be available as?
It's in our financial report.
It's in.
And the fire company's stand on that is, we try not to touch the principal at all. Yeah, we don't. Any money that we spend out of it is, you know, just that we make.
What we spend.
And actually, over the years, I can go through a list starting from 1981.
I don't think we gotta start
The
that.
fire company purchased.
We've been here a while already.
No, the fire company purchased the pumper. 95, I think it was. We put forth $250,000 towards the new firehouse. In 2000, we put out $200,000 to contribute to a new engine. In 2004, $200,000 for the tower. In 2010, the tanker was bought outright by our company with no township contribution.
That was what, 350s?
In 2015, $100,000 contribution towards our special services truck. In 2022, Chief's car. And along with all those trucks, not included in those prices, we fitted all the equipment.
Purchase
And
all
that,
radios,
and,
equipment,
yeah, radios and equipment.
rescue tools.
And that is because we were financially, you know, sound in watching the investment that we have. And
Contributions from the.
yeah, and also the township's contributions
And the
with fund
taxpayers'
drives.
contributions.
Sorry, last thing. The estimate to the average taxpayer, am I right on the math that we had it at like 4 something? But you're already paying part of your taxes. I thought we'd had some math that it was actually, it's not funny math, but
That's the bottom line, backing out what you're already paying.
backing out of what you're already paying, so it's net. Okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that no one was expecting a different number down the line. We'd already done that work and it's.
So that number already came out of our municipal budget.
Yeah, so no, meaning from a taxpayer's perspective, what you'd be paying, that 4 something is net, because if you think about it today, a portion of your municipal tax bill, you're paying for all those line items that are in the current budget. I'm just making sure that it's not in addition to that,
And
that
what we were
it's
given,
netted
that's
out.
all back out.
You
Hydrant
asked-
fees, our contribution, the squad's contribution.
All of that 562, yeah, okay. I just wanted to clarify that.
Oh, and the fire marshal's
Fire
fees is in there as well. Right. So, yeah, that backs that up too.
Just the feasibility study, like one of the recommendations was that what we're doing is, if we change this current setup, it would be expensive. So it's just really worth taking a look at, how to improve the current system, explore other new options. And I think that's why we were trying to flesh out this information as possible. So yes, it does be expensive financial, and that's important.
And like I said, we spent 5 years on this. I think we did a pretty thorough job.
Okay, all right, so you capture next steps, I capture next steps, we compare notes? Okay. So, I had, community outreach. I had to, redo the integral budget and bring it up to like current expenses. Maybe just have a conversation about my powder keg question at the end of, have we explored all models, including per diems under the township?
We'll be more than happy
Yep.
at any time to be with you.
Again, it's strictly from the lens. You gotta pass that red face test under oath. You gotta be able to say, we've done the work, we've done the diligence on it, right? So that's why I'm kind of making that a priority. if we have to answer.
Lisa, I really appreciate that, because that's where I was leading to make sure that
I mean,
that was in the feasibility study.
Again, I'm taking it really from the questions that are asked, how do we answer them?
DCA, correct.
Yep, okay. And what else?
How about a date for our next meeting?
How about what?
A date for our next meeting?
Our date for our next meeting?
Meet either in private or,
Yeah, we can work that out, like, quickly, email or right after this, like, look at calendars to do
we
that.
will contact our accountant tomorrow to start working on the budget. Because
Okay.
before we
And-
do community outreach, we need a new budget.
Right.
Yeah, Tori, and again, I would even mock up like tax cards, like fake tax things to say, this is what tax bill looks like now. You're now gonna see an additional line item for the fire department. It just might help like residents from a visual standpoint, see it, right?
Quite honestly, I mean, everybody didn't have a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
They
And I
understand.
can't speak for anyone else up here, but I'm available if we wanna then schedule these, and I think the commitment is that you've got a TC member always be there, because we're there to engage with the community with you, and we want to hear what they have to say.
For sure.
Works for me.
Okay,
That would be a big plus, actually.
that's all I got.
We're done?
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we're going to public comment, you might want to work with Lisa.
Leave it on.
Leave it on.
Yeah, it's on.
Leave it on.
You want us to wait for public comment? Or
There might, because there might be public comment on here, so if you don't mind.
So if you want to hear it.
are we able to answer or no?
No.
Usually that was a one-way conversation. right?
No, but we'll track every
We'll
question.
make notes of the questions.
Yeah. One way or the other, we'll get answers. Okay, so now we'll open up public comment for our meeting. Is there any member of the public that would like to come up and provide comment? Sure. Mr. Bukowski? Oh, remind everybody, you've got 3 minutes. We've got a fancy new clock here so that it's more visible to the person making comment. As you're winding down, you'll be able to start to wind down your comment. Okay? Give Debbie the thumbs up, Mark, and she'll start the big clock.
This will be shorter than a
Big
minute.
Ben.
Mark Percassi, North Main Street, representing Cranberry Housing Associates. Just want to let the committee and the public at large know that we are having an information session on the history of the organization, providing affordable housing for Cranberry, as well as recent round 4 issues. Public's input and support will be enlisted as possible alternative solutions for Cranberry's future affordable housing are discussed. The meeting will be held tomorrow night, Tuesday, July 15th at 7:30 in this very room in the library. So in person will be great, and it will be online as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Are there any action items we captured except the ones, sorry, is there any further public comment? I'm so sorry. Sorry. Hi, Wayne.
Put your glasses on. They're on your neck.
I can see that. Testing. You let me know when.
You're ready, you say your name and I'm gonna start.
Wayne Whitman, 97 South Main Street. In hearing the testimony from the fire company and all your responses tonight, I appreciate the due diligence of both T's and reviewing this information and moving forward. I think the one thing that the Township Committee really needs to focus on is that, with all due respect to my friend Charles and other people, they are the key glue holding the fire company together, but they're not immortal, okay? They're older people like myself that have been in town a long time, that have, their hearts are as big as the town, but, we're all getting older. And unless you get new people coming in, and if we can't supplement with volunteers, I understand what you said about volunteers, cyclical. So the whole thing with having somebody there during the day we know is gonna be there is gonna be critical to our town moving forward. I don't know if you've looked at the price of real estate in town lately, and what the prices of houses cost. And 5 minutes on a fire is the world of difference between your house, your $900,000 house now burning down or being put out. So you really got to consider this as you move forward in your actions here. So I hope this can be moved forward. I think that's it's a good plan. So hopefully, it'll work out. But I understand your questions leave out what happened with Greensburg, and it has to be airtight when you're going to go back up to them. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment this evening? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. And besides the 3 action items I mentioned for the proposed fire district, are there any other items?
Have we decided on August meeting? Have we decided on our August meeting?
Just for the general public, we have 2 meetings that are, or 3 meetings, I believe, that are optional a year for the town. It's the second meeting in July and the second meeting in August. Our second meeting of July has been canceled due to lack of quorum. We have not made a decision on both meetings in August at this point. So we'll usually know by the first meeting in August if we're in the second meeting in August. Yeah. So that our action item is to.
Yeah, I was just thinking of Cranberry Day Sudden, because it's almost September.
No, it's always in September, so it's the second Saturday in September. There's no conflict with our meeting. Yeah, and well after Labor Day. That's okay. Any other action items? Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
That's it.